Once again, we're at Lost Toys, and I'm sitting here with Brian Robertson. We get the task of talking about, perhaps, maybe the greatest Star Wars film? Where do you put it?
Absolutely the greatest Star Wars film. When I hear people argue that Episode 4 is the greatest, I'm like, okay, I can understand your argument. It is the first that hit. It created a universe for us to all enjoy. But it's like a first pass at that universe too. By the time Empire comes around, I mean, everybody's all trained up. They've got the effects. They invented technology for those effects in 1977.
Right.
And then they were perfecting it with 80. But I mean, Empire, that is a serious story.
Yes, it is.
And that is my Star Wars, because
yes,
I was born in 76.
Okay.
So I was too young, to see Star Wars until 80 when Empire comes out, and then they re-release Star Wars, and I get caught up, and man, my childhood really began.
That's right. And you know it's a good movie when one of the stars can be a Muppet. Okay. And everybody still take it and love it. So yeah, the first movie, New Hope, kind of introduced this world to us, but then in the second one, Empire Strikes Back, we get a completely different tone, a different ending. Everything doesn't end all happy and great, just like it did at the end of the New Hope, where Luke goes ahead and blows up the Death Star. But now they went darker with this one, and actually I like it. Some people have tried to say the only thing I've heard ever about this that people didn't like was they tried to say, oh, it was too serious or it didn't have enough action in it. But the arcs, the stories.
I don't think it's that serious. It's dark, and so the dark overpowers, a lot of the funny stuff. But I mean, that's where we get. Will somebody get this walking carpet out of my way? Laugh it up, fuzzball. I mean, there's a ton of good fun stuff in Empire Strikes Back. Some of the best lines in the entire series are in ESB.
I would agree, and I would say Hayden Christensen should have watched how Han Solo talked to Princess Leia in this film, so he wouldn't be so wooden later on, as we saw him try to talk to Padme in, I guess, Attack of the Clones, and it just didn't work. But Han Solo, we get that cool line. He's a Mac Daddy when Princess Leia can say, I love you, and he just simply says, I know. And originally, most people may know this, or maybe they don't, but that line wasn't written that way, right?
It wasn't. That was a kind of on-the-spot revision from, I think, Harrison Ford. It was his suggestion. He was really into the character, and he worked it out with Kirsch to say that line. And man, I'm so glad we have that. Oh yeah, can you imagine what it would have sounded like? He would have said, Leia would have said, "I love you," and he would have said, "Sand. It just gets everywhere. It's rough." No, but I mean, he just knew. I mean, Harrison Ford. I don't like it when it gets in my bathing suit.
Right? I mean, you just gotta love Harrison Ford. He's like, Han Solo wouldn't say that. He'd say something like, I know. And he does. And so this is the first time we get to see Chewie, kind of do some more aggressive stuff. In the first one, they just put him in handcuffs, and he kind of threatened and yelled at little robots that offered him nothing. But here, we get to see him go a little aggro, and he starts throwing stormtroopers when he sees his good buddy about to be put into carbonite. Yeah,
talk about Chewie too. I mean, just the emotional connection, the bond between him and Han, is never more evident than there's that scene. But even at the beginning, when they're closing the door Echo Base, Chewie's just like, kind of bumps his head on the Falcon. I mean, you could feel that ache of like, man, my partner's out there.
Yeah, my boy, he hasn't come back, and then of course Han's looking for Luke. And by the way, it's the first time we see Han Solo with a lightsaber in his hand, so he didn't have to have the Force in order to cut open that tauntaun to put Luke in there. So that's kind of an interesting thing, because I know Force Awakens is talking about the Force Awakening. We understand that the Force could be in anything, but here's Han Solo, a non-Force sensitive person, as far as we know, using a lightsaber.
It must be pretty intuitive, because I probably would have stood there and fiddled with it for a while, like I do with the replicas, trying to figure out how to turn it on. Yeah, I did a pretty good job.
Yeah, and I mean, in this one, the love story was there. Princess Leia, Han Solo, you see it. You want to see them together. You like the banter back and forth. It's not just lovey-dovey stuff. They're just kind of going back and forth. But you like it, and then Han Solo goes in for the kiss. I mean, Han Solo was the man. I mean,
he's totally the man. He's totally the man.
And wouldn't he be the guy that would shoot Greedo first? I mean...
Well, there's just no argument there. Of course he shot first.
Yeah.
But he's pretty smooth, but we also get one maybe a little bit smoother, giving him a run for his money in this episode, right?
Yeah, we get the Yoda for the first time.
Well, I was going to go with Lando for
Lando,
smooth, but Yoda,
yes.
I guess, is pretty smooth.
Yes. In fact, Lando is the smooth one that he's talking about. And Lando, this is my goodness, I'm sitting here forgetting his name already. I shouldn't be. Billy D. Williams,
yeah.
Gets to be in there, and I always remember the old Slits Malt Liquor beer commercials. Mm-hmm. You know, he's always
Colt 45,
or is it Colt 45? Yeah. See, I'm getting my beers mixed up there. But he was smooth, and all of a sudden we get to see the beer commercial guy show up and be just smooth,
in control, man. I mean, this
man.
guy. I love Lando Calrissian. I think he's one of the most underrated characters in Star Wars, and doesn't get a lot of love in the way of action figures, 12-inch figures, but I just think he's the coolest. Mm-hmm. I think I had a cardboard standee of him in my room at one point. I just, I love Lando Calrissian. So.
I mean, doesn't he win the Millennium Falcon from Han Solo in a game? So he goes from that to being, mayor or something like that of a whole city.
Yeah, Han won it from him in the game, right? But,
okay.
It's a little bit, the details are a little bit sketchy, and, maybe Lando feels like Han won it unfairly. But, yeah, he went from a kind of a gambler and smuggler like Han to being a respectable, leader of Cloud City.
Mm-hmm. And he did, and of course, I was always sad when I was a kid and I saw that. It's like, man, why does Lando have to be the one? But then you understand why he had to do that. The Empire had gotten there before, the troopers had gotten there before, and he kind of had no choice.
Well, he's responsible for all those people. I mean,
yeah,
he's doing the responsible thing. At least he had maybe some kind of plan to work it out later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did.
I don't want to spoil the movie for you.
That's right. And speaking of that, as a slight pivot, then you think about Yoda. And this is a big deal now because in the prequels, Yoda's flipping around and doing all this stuff with a lightsaber. Yet here in Empire Strikes Back, what we learn about Yoda is he says that war does not make one great. And he never even trains Luke with a lightsaber. And in fact, when Luke was going to go into a cave, he tells him, "You won't need your weapons. Put them down." And then he also told him it's not this crude matter. Mm-hmm. And then of course he had some of the greatest lines, Yoda, when he says, "Do or do not." There is no try. Mm-hmm. Wonderful. And then somehow we changed that a little bit later, but.
I think it was Yoda too that coined the phrase that size matters not.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at Yoda there and how the whole juxtaposition of Luke's going there looking for this great Jedi warrior, and then you see this little bitty cantankerous little
That's
Yoda
powerful.
guy.
That's very powerful because and that's I think the point is so emphasized too by his size being so small and unassuming his overall presence. Yet he can effortlessly control the Force.
Yes.
The Force is his ally, and he can lift, an entire X-wing out of the Dagobah swamp. Again, sorry for the spoilers.
No, and I love it. That's perfect. And I love that line too. He has another good line, which I think is just a good, let's get going, like the coach. Like it's kind of like Mickey talking to Rocky, and Luke says, "How did you do that? That was impossible." And then he's like, "And that is why you fail," And I was like, wow. But that was the truth. Sometimes you need to hear the truth just like that. So you can hear it, rub up against it, and then maybe that makes you change. Because by the time we see him in Return of the Jedi, Luke's a little bit, he's not as whiny in Return of the Jedi. He's in all black and everything. So I kind of liked it, that Yoda, being cantankerous at first, being funny and all this stuff, but then can say the hard stuff. Delivered. Or maybe not hard, but the straightforward, the direct stuff.
Well, I love, too, that was such a test, right? The whole meeting of Yoda was a test on Luke, right?
Yes.
Annoying the heck out of him and really pushing him to the edge and getting him to that impulsive state. Yoda was figuring this guy out, figuring out his respect to other beings in the galaxy, and we learned a lot about both Luke and Yoda in those scenes. So.
Yes, we did. And this, by the way, is the movie where it's Ben Kenobi who says twice that his master or instructor was Yoda, not Qui-Gon Jinn. He says it when Luke is sitting there and he shows up as a Force ghost in the very beginning when he's freezing to death. And he tells him, "You're going to go to the Dagobah system and go meet Yoda, who's the same guy who instructed him." And then inside Yoda's little hut, when Yoda's ready to just quit on Luke because Luke's just being, stubborn and bratty. You know, and Ben Kenobi says there, he says, was I any different when you instructed me? So we get 2 messages here that says that Ben Kenobi and Yoda, so I think I would have liked to have seen that more.
We need those lost episodes of, Obi-Wan getting trained up.
Yeah.
Post Qui-Gon, that'd be cool.
That would have been really, really cool. In fact, I would have loved to have seen that in The Phantom Menace, but, that's a whole other story. So then we see Yoda. Yoda does this stuff. Then, of course, Luke leaves, and, of course, the greatest...
Well, just that whole decision Luke has to make too.
Yeah.
Like, if he leaves, he might be able to save his friends, but I those lines just echo in my head. But you'll betray everything that they fight for. If you do that, and if you face Vader too soon, everything could come crashing down, and it sure nearly did.
It sure, yeah. And that fight scene between Luke and Darth Vader. Just how from a cinematography standpoint, the way it was shot. I mean, it was the glow of the lightsabers that helped you see the outline of the combatants. It was darker. It wasn't in a nice lit up Death Star like Ben Kenobi versus Vader was. So this had a very dark horror theme almost to it in a sense. And then when Luke goes walking by looking for him after, he goes through the glass and everything like that, it's interesting how it takes a turn where it almost feels like a horror movie for a second. It's like one of the scary scenes.
So that kind of part 2, after he climbs back up, he got sucked out of the window and kind of climbs back up and starts to go in again, and then Vader just comes from out of nowhere.
Yes.
And with a new intensity. I mean, that was crazy. Before it was just kind of like,
he was just
one-armed, just like not a big deal. But then he came back with a vengeance that time. He was there to finish it.
Yes, he was. And then we get the greatest twist in all of history, I guess cinematic history in terms of storytelling, where Darth Vader then reveals to Luke that he in fact is his father. I mean, the greatest misdirect. None of us were seeing that. We weren't thinking that. And I remember as a kid, I was sitting there going, "Oh, wow! Now what?"
Like, what? I mean, it was a true shocker. It shocked everybody, and I guess the only person who claims to have known, he said he knew for like a year or something like that, was Mark Hamill.
Really?
That's what I read recently, but I thought nobody really knew until they were shooting it. George Lucas probably didn't know.
Yeah.
But it sure was a nice twist, man.
It was excellent. And then, of course, this film then ends... Not on the super high note like it did in New Hope. It ends with Luke with just one arm. Because, that's the thing. You have to get your arm cut off or your hand cut off. Some sort of appendage has to get cut off in order to be a real Jedi, unless you're Ben Kenobi or Yoda, I guess.
What I think Episode 4 did really well, the pacing isn't as solid in 4 as 5. 5, you start off, the rebels are on the run, they're fleeing. They were holed up on this ice planet, like a remote, desolate planet, not, enduring all that, because they're trying to hide and stay alive, right? The Empire is in full pursuit. So you start with that kind of intensity and that urgency and that, that danger. Yeah. And then just everything, every step of the way, it's like one piece to the next. It slows down just a little bit with the Dagobah stuff, but the way they keep cutting to, here's the rest of the gang, fleeing in the asteroid field and all this stuff. I mean, the pacing is so good in the film. And you're always like on the edge of your seat.
Yes, you are. Absolutely.
So it's not slow. It's not boring.
Right.
It's freaking intense, like the entire way through. And I love how it ends. I mean, it kind of, you don't know where you're beginning exactly because it's just a perfect in between film, right?
Yes.
They've been kind of established, but there's a lot that you're missing. There's a big gap between Episode 4 and 5. And then they get to the point where, well, Han's gone. We got to go find him. I guess Lando's all right. Luke's got his new hand, and it's really just kind of facing out, to where, I mean, it's leaving us just like they're left.
Leaving us hanging, yeah. And you can see where here George Lucas definitely shows us how he's a big fan of the serials. Because that's how a serial would end. And you'd have to come back the next week to see what happened after that. Of course, we have to wait 3 years before we got Return of the Jedi. But what a way to just end without the good guys winning at the end. I mean, the Empire wins. They don't just strike back; they win. in this particular movie.
Oh,
It was interesting to see that. And it's strange because out of all the original trilogy's movies, it's the one that did the least amount of money in the box office. Yet it was the best one. So I don't know what that says about moviegoers.
Yeah, I don't know. Box office, it doesn't always mean much, but, you know. I guess it could be that tonally it was dark. It's kind of a bummer to people.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes movies, though, you know, the box office performance doesn't make them great, right? But it's, you know, you look back on them later, and, you know, they become... There's so many movies that are cult favorites or something like that.
That's true.
Or found their audience, you know, long after they were in the theater. But I didn't actually know that Empire performed the worst. I guess Star Wars, there were so many re-releases.
And Star Wars was number one from 1977 in terms of grossing money, revenue.
Really long time,
up until 97. It took it 20 years, and that was a movie called Titanic that moved Star Wars out of the number one spot in terms of drawing power and money and revenue and all that good stuff. So, very interesting thing, but very bold to say, let's just end the movie on kind of a dark note. But then what that does is build the anticipation. I can't even talk that. It builds the anticipation for what we're going to see in Return of the Jedi. Because you want to see all the things that went wrong get righted in Return of the Jedi. And in fact, that will be our next review. So definitely tune in for that. We're going to find out exactly how that whole situation in Empire Strikes Back got rectified. But other than that, any other thoughts about Empire Strikes Back?
Just you know, with episode 3, I commented on the art, the design of it, and Empire Strikes Back too. I just love the different, you know, planets. You get so many different colors. You know, starting with Hoth, this desolate white, blue, lots of blue in the sky, some blue in the snow. The ice caves looked amazing. And you have, you know, Dagobah that's just rich with life, but it's a swamp planet. You've got Bespin, you know, Cloud City, which has some of the most beautiful shots, beautiful concept art ever produced. You know, it's definitely for this movie. Even the designs in Cloud City, like, you know, there's sculptures in there. There's all kinds of amazing architecture. I just love the design of all the Star Wars movies, but Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah. And by the way, for all the folks who are into special effects, this movie, if you go back and watch it now, the effects still hold up. It's still believable enough when you watch it. You don't think, oh, I'm out of the movie now. You can totally see the lines on that one. No, it actually still holds up pretty well.
Yoda's eyes are a little bit creepy, though, because they just they stay open and kind of fixed out. He's a little bit like Al Pacino in Sin of a Woman.
Yeah, see? See, so we found a negative right there. Yoda's eye. See, so there is maybe one thing that they could have worked out in this film, but otherwise than that, Empire Strikes Back. I know we may have spoiled some of it for you today, but if you haven't seen this film, please watch this before you go and watch The Force Awakens so you can just understand. You talked about the sets and just the visuals of it, but also the storyline and even the acting. Because again, no one had heard of Carrie Fisher other than she was the daughter of another famous actor, right? But this is a big role for her. Harrison Ford, and of course Luke, still kind of an unknown. I mean, Harrison Ford moved on, got to do Indiana Jones, but the rest of these folks didn't. But yet they still bring exactly what you want to see in a film that has a bit of romance in it, has a lot more about philosophy, because Yoda is basically putting on a clinic with Luke there about the philosophy of life and trying to understand it and how the Force fits into that. And then you get that, hey, life doesn't always go the way you want it. Look what happened at Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
So
this one and Jedi are essential viewing. If you watch nothing else in preparation for Force Awakens, you got to watch Episode 5 and Episode 6, because you know, seeing the bond between, you know, our band, our you know, Luke, Han, Leia, Chewbacca, the droids. I mean, seeing all that again, Empire, that those connections, those relationships, those characterizations are growing and growing, and then in Jedi we kind of have, like, you know, kind of the apex of all that. So, you know, you care about them because they care about each other, and I really want to see how that plays out.
That's exactly right.
Friday.
Yeah, that's coming out next Friday, which some of us will see Thursday.
I want to know where Luke is.
Yes, and we will find out where Luke is, and that's brilliant on that end. So, for you guys sitting at home, go ahead and pull out that Empire Strikes Back, watch it again, and just sit back with your popcorn, something nice to drink. Don't move, don't look at your phone. just watch the movie. I promise you, it will be absolute joy.